Welcome to XO, where science meets heart at the kitchen table. I'm your host, Davey. In each episode, I narrate B-side tracks curated around a single theme: the why behind the ingredients, the swaps that make it better, and the stories that have been simmering for generations. No interviews, no guests, just me and you. Before we get into the kitchen, the pastes, the sauces, the shapes, the finishes, I need to tell you what this episode is really about. It's not about recipes. It's about reading what's already in front of you. Because once you understand that paste and butter and sauce are the same ingredient at different points on a line, you stop throwing things away and start asking what they want to become. Once you know that creaminess isn't something you buy, it's something you build, the heavy cream disappears from your cart and nothing is missing. Once you see pasta as geometry doing a job, you stop being loyal to the box and start being intentional about the match. Once you keep 4 sauces in your fridge, dinner stops being a question and starts being assembly. And once you find the version that gives you everything you wanted without the crash, that's when you know the remix actually worked. 5 tracks, 1 kitchen. Let's build. Track 1, paste, butter, sauce. I was making hummus when I broke my own brain. I'd made hummus 100 times. Chickpeas, tahini, lemon, garlic, olive oil. Blend it up. Done. But this time I got distracted. Streaming Traders does that to me, and I turned back around to find I'd been running the food processor way too long. The hummus had gone past hummus. It was silky, almost pourable. I'd accidentally turned it into something else entirely. I stood there staring at it thinking, wait, what is this now? Is it still hummus? Is it a sauce? A dressing? When did it cross the line? And then the bigger question hit me. Was there ever a line to begin with? I started thinking about almonds. You blend almonds, and at first you get almond meal. Keep going, and it becomes almond paste. Dense, stubborn, barely holding together. Keep going longer, and the oils release. Now it's almond butter. Smooth, spreadable, a completely different thing. Add water or lemon juice. Now it's almond sauce. Drizzle it over a bowl, dress a salad, spoon it onto roasted vegetables. Same almonds, same blender, 3 different outcomes. The only thing that changed was time and liquid. Tomato paste is tomatoes reduced to their most concentrated self. Thick. Intense. You wouldn't eat it straight from the can? It's not meant to be the meal. It's meant to build one. Add a little oil and cook it down. That's closer to a butter. It coats. It clings. Add water or broth. Now it's sauce. It moves. It connects everything on the plate. Same tomato, different ratios, different job. Most of us learn recipes. We don't learn the logic underneath them. We follow instructions for pesto, hummus, tahini dressing, marinara, treating each one like a separate thing to memorize. But once you see the pattern, you can't unsee it. Paste is concentrated. It's the foundation. It's potential energy sitting in a jar. Butter is what happens when fat enters the conversation. Things loosen. They become spreadable, coatable. Fat is what turns intensity into comfort. Sauce is what happens when liquid shows up. Everything that was tight and concentrated now moves freely. It pours, it drizzles, it connects every ingredient on the plate to each other. That's it. 3 phases. 1 ingredient. You've got leftover pesto that's too thick. You could Google thin pesto recipe, or you could just add a splash of pasta water and stir. Congratulations. You just moved it from butter to sauce. That hummus in your fridge? Loosen it with olive oil and lemon juice. Now it's a dressing. Tahini straight from the jar is basically a paste. Add water, garlic, and lemon. You just built one of the most versatile sauces on the planet. Nut butter plus soy sauce plus lime plus a little water. That's satay sauce. You didn't need a recipe. You needed the ratio. I think about this constantly now. Every time I open the fridge and see something thick, I think, what does this want to become? The answer is never throw it away. The answer is almost always add a liquid, change its job. Paste becomes butter, becomes sauce the moment you decide what dinner needs, not when the blender tells you to stop. Everything on your counter is already somewhere on that line. The question isn't what it is, it's what you want it to become and what it takes to get there. Track 2. You don't need the cream. I was making pasta one night. Nothing fancy, just noodles with olive oil and garlic. And I did the thing I'd read about 100 times, but never actually tried. I saved a cup of the starchy cooking water before draining the pot. I tossed the hot pasta with olive oil, a clove of garlic, and a splash of that cloudy, salty water. Then I stirred and watched the liquid and the oil come together into something glossy, silky, and clinging to every noodle like a cream sauce. There was no cream in the pan, no butter, no cheese, just starch, oil, and heat, creating an emulsion that coated the back of a spoon and tasted like it came from a restaurant. I stood at the stove thinking, how many pints of heavy cream have I poured into pasta when this was the answer the whole time? That night broke something open for me. I'd always assumed that if a dish needed to be creamy, it needed cream, or butter, or cheese, some form of dairy that would deliver that rich, velvety coating we're all chasing. But creaminess isn't a thing. It's a result. It's what happens when fat gets suspended in liquid so evenly that it feels like silk on your tongue. Dairy does that, but it's not the only way to get there. Cashews do it. Soak them for a few hours, blend them with water, and you get a neutral, smooth emulsion that's almost indistinguishable from heavy cream in a sauce. No dairy flavor, no inflammatory load, just clean fat in suspension. Cauliflower does it. Roast it, blend it with a little broth and garlic, and you've got a thick, velvety base that gives a sauce body without the heaviness. White beans do the same thing. Blend them smooth, and they disappear into a sauce, adding protein and fiber while creating the texture your brain reads as rich. Silken tofu does it. Blend it into a sauce. It holds flavor with a clarity that cream actually muddies. And it brings protein instead of just fat. Each one gets you to creamy through a different door. None of them require a carton from the dairy aisle. You've seen the videos. Marry Me Chicken, Tuscan cream pasta, the ones where someone pours half a pint of heavy cream into a skillet and it looks incredible. And it is, for the first few bites. Then something happens. Your palate gets tired. The richness stops being pleasurable and starts being heavy. You push the plate away half finished, not because you're full, but because your tongue has had enough. That's what happens when fat has no counterweight. The cream coats your mouth so completely that you stop tasting the other ingredients, the garlic, the herbs, the protein. It's all buried under a layer of dairy. The fix is acid, a squeeze of lemon, a splash of white wine, a spoonful of vinegar stirred in at the end. Acid cuts through the fat coating on your palate and resets your taste buds between bites. It's the reason you can eat an entire bowl of cacio e pepe. The lemon and pepper provide enough contrast to keep the richness interesting all the way through. The best cream sauces in the world aren't the richest ones. They're the most balanced ones. Fat needs acid the way sweetness needs salt. Without the contrast, everything flattens out. This was a late discovery for me, and I'm a little embarrassed it took so long. Miso stirred into a cream sauce, dairy or non-dairy doesn't matter, adds a fermented depth that makes the whole dish taste like it simmered for hours. It's savory, slightly funky, and complex in a way that cream alone never achieves. A tablespoon of white miso whisked into a cashew cream sauce with garlic and lemon is one of the best things I've made this year. It went over roasted cauliflower, It could have gone over anything. The miso doesn't taste like miso in the finished dish. It just makes everything else taste more like itself. Deeper, rounder, more complete. It's doing the same job the lemon does, but from the opposite direction. Lemon brightens, miso grounds. Together they turn a simple cream sauce into something people ask about. I still use butter. I still use Parmesan. I'm not anti-dairy, but the heavy cream is mostly gone from my rotation, not because I decided it was bad, but because I found things that do the job better. A jar of soaked cashews ready to blend. Miso paste. Lemons, always. Good olive oil. A block of silken tofu for when I want something neutral and protein-rich. The pasta water trick is still the one I use most. It costs nothing. It's already in the pot. And it produces a sauce that looks and feels like it took effort when it took about 90 seconds. Creamy isn't something you buy, it's something you build. Once you stop reaching for the carton, you start noticing everything else that creates richness. The structure, the starch, the shape that holds it all together. Track 3. Pasta is a shape. I used to grab whatever pasta was on sale. Spaghetti, penne, rotini, didn't matter. Pasta was pasta. You boil it, you sauce it, you eat it. The shape was decorative, a preference, like choosing between blue and green. Then one night I made a chunky ragu, big pieces of tomato, sausage, fennel, and tossed it with spaghetti. Half the sauce slid to the bottom of the bowl. Every bite was either all noodle or all sauce. Nothing held together. The next week I made the same ragu and used rigatoni. The tubes trapped the chunks. The sauce clung to the ridges. Every forkful had everything in it. Same recipe, different shape. Completely different meal. That was the night I realized pasta isn't an ingredient. It's architecture. Italians didn't invent 300 pasta shapes because they were bored. Each one is engineered for a specific job, a specific relationship between noodle and sauce. Rigatoni is a pipe. It's open, ridged, and built to catch heavy, chunky sauces. The sauce gets inside the tube. It clings to the grooves on the outside. Every bite is loaded. Linguine is a flat ribbon. It's designed for lighter sauces. Olive oil, garlic, lemon, a thin clam sauce. The flat surface lets the sauce coat evenly without pooling. It's about coverage, not capture. Orecchiette, those little ear-shaped cups, are built for small pieces. Crumbled sausage, broccoli flores, tiny cubes of vegetable. The cup holds them. The fork scoops everything at once. The shape isn't cosmetic, it's functional. It determines how much sauce each bite carries, how the texture changes in your mouth, whether the dish feels light or heavy. When the shape matches the sauce, everything clicks. When it doesn't, you're chasing puddles around the bottom of the bowl. Once I started seeing pasta as a shape, as geometry doing a job, the next question was obvious. Does it have to be made of flour? It doesn't. Chickpea pasta holds its shape, cooks al dente, and brings protein and fiber that white flour never did. A bowl of chickpea rigatoni with ragu is still rigatoni with ragu. It still catches the sauce. It still has bite. But it keeps you full twice as long and doesn't spike your blood sugar the same way. Lentil pasta does the same thing with a slightly earthier flavor. It's dense, it holds sauce well, and it doesn't fall apart if you undercook it slightly, which you should, because legume pastas go from al dente to mushy fast. Pull them a minute early and rinse with cold water to set the structure. Then there's the vegetable route. A zucchini shaved lengthwise on a mandolin becomes a ribbon that functions exactly like pappardelle. It holds cream sauce. It wraps around a fork. It's a shape, just made from a different material. Shredded cabbage sautéed fast with garlic and olive oil makes a surprisingly convincing base for carbonara sauce. The cabbage has enough structure to hold the egg and cheese emulsion, enough surface area to carry flavor, and it crisps slightly on the edges in a way that noodles never do. You're not replacing pasta. You're using the same geometry with different building materials. The most underused ingredient in pasta cooking isn't a spice or a sauce. It's the water. When pasta cooks, it releases starch into the water. That cloudy, salty liquid is a natural emulsifier. When you add a splash of it to your sauce while finishing the pasta in the pan, the starch binds the fat and the water together. It turns separated oil and liquid into a glossy, cohesive sauce that clings to every surface. This is the whole secret behind cacio e pepe, behind aglio e olio, behind every Italian pasta dish that looks creamy but has no cream in it. The pasta water is the glue. I save a cup of it every single time now. Before I drain the pot, I scoop it out with a mug and set it on the counter. I use about half of it, sometimes all of it. It's free. It's already there. And it's the difference between sauce that sits on top of the pasta and sauce that becomes part of it. I still eat regular wheat pasta. I still grab spaghetti sometimes. The point isn't to eliminate anything. The point is that once you see pasta as a shape, as a delivery system designed to move sauce from plate to mouth, you stop being loyal to the material and start being intentional about the match. Heavy sauce, big shape. Light sauce, flat shape. And the material? That's up to you. Flour, chickpea, lentil, zucchini, cabbage. They're all candidates for the same job. Pick the one that fits the meal. The box isn't the recipe. The shape is. The right shape moves the sauce to your mouth, but even the best shape can't finish the plate on its own. Something is almost always missing, and it's almost always wet. Track 4. Every dish is missing a sauce. I used to think sauces were extra. Something fancy restaurants did. A drizzle on a plate that was already finished. An accessory. Then I started paying attention to why some meals felt complete and others felt like something was missing, even though everything was cooked well. The chicken was seasoned right. The vegetables were roasted perfectly, but eating it felt like reading a sentence without a period. Technically, all the words were there. It just didn't land. The missing thing was almost always a sauce, not a complicated one, not a French mother sauce that takes 3 hours, just something wet, flavorful, and intentional that connected everything on the plate. A spoonful of tahini lemon dressing over a grain bowl. A quick pan sauce made from the fond and a splash of broth. A dollop of pesto on roasted vegetables. These aren't extras. They're the thing that turns a collection of ingredients into a meal. I don't make dozens of sauces. I keep 4 in rotation, and between them, there's almost nothing they can't handle. The creamy one. Something rich that coats and clings. This is for lean proteins and dry dishes. Roasted chicken, white fish, steamed vegetables that need body. Cashews soaked and blended with garlic and lemon. Tahini thinned with water and seasoned. Cauliflower pureed with broth until it's silky. Any of these gives you the velvety texture that cream sauces provide without the heaviness. The green one, something herby, bright, and raw. This is for cutting through richness. Grilled meat, roasted roots, anything heavy that needs a counterweight. Pesto in any form. Chimichurri, a quick salsa verde with parsley, capers, lemon, and olive oil. These sauces are alive. They bring the freshness and enzymes that cooked food doesn't have. The bright one, something acidic that wakes everything up. A vinaigrette. A squeeze of citrus mixed with olive oil. A mignonette. This is the finishing move. The last thing on the plate that sharpens every other flavor. Without acid, richness becomes heaviness. With it, heaviness becomes depth, the deep one. Something savory and grounding. Mushrooms reduced in soy sauce and finished with butter. A miso tahini blend. A pan sauce built from fond, broth, and a splash of balsamic. These sauces add the layer that makes simple food taste expensive. That savory, almost meaty depth that your tongue reads as complexity. Every dish needs at least one of these. Many of the best meals have two: the creamy underneath and the bright on top. The deep is the base and the green is the finish. The thing that changed my weeknight cooking more than any technique or recipe was keeping sauces already made in the fridge: a jar of pesto, a container of tahini dressing, a batch of cashew cream, a bottle of simple vinaigrette. These take minutes to make on a Sunday, and they last all week. With sauces ready, dinner becomes assembly. Roast a protein, roast a vegetable, cook a grain, add a sauce. 20 minutes, and it's a complete meal that tastes intentional because the sauce ties everything together. Without sauces ready, dinner becomes the thing where you stand in front of the fridge at 6:30 p.m., wondering why nothing sounds good. The ingredients are there, but the connection is missing. The sentence has no period. This still bothers me when I think about how many years I did it wrong. Every time you sear something in a pan, chicken, fish, vegetables, anything, the brown bits that stick to the bottom are concentrated flavor. That's the fond. It's the Maillard reaction in solid form, and it's the best sauce starter you'll ever have. For years, I washed it off. I'd cook the chicken, take it out, and immediately start scrubbing the pan because it looked dirty. All you have to do is leave the pan on the heat, add a splash of liquid, broth, wine, lemon juice, even water, and scrape. Everything dissolves. In 60 seconds, you have a sauce that tastes like it took an hour because it contains the concentrated essence of everything that happened in that pan. Finish with a small piece of cold butter whisked in at the end. It emulsifies into the liquid and creates a glossy, rich sauce that clings to the meat. That's it. That's the restaurant secret. They're not washing the pan between courses. They're building the next sauce from the last one. Most bottled sauces exist because people don't realize how easy the homemade version is, and most of them are built on seed oils, stabilizers, and sugar, ingredients that are there for shelf life, not for your health. A vinaigrette is olive oil, acid, salt, and mustard. Takes 30 seconds. A tahini sauce is tahini, lemon, garlic, and water. 1 minute. Pesto is herbs, oil, nuts, and something savory blended together. 5 minutes. Every one of these is better than the bottled version. Everyone costs less. And everyone is made from ingredients you can see and pronounce. The sauce isn't the garnish. It's the reason the plate works. 4 sauces, 1 fridge, every plate connected. All that's left is the dish that started this whole conversation. The one that taught a generation to love pasta and then put them to sleep on the couch. Track 5, Alfredo without the nap. Fettuccine Alfredo was one of the first things I learned to make. Butter, cream, parmesan, pasta, 4 ingredients, 20 minutes. A plate of something so rich and velvety that it felt like a reward. The problem was always what happened after. The heaviness, the fog, that specific kind of full where your body shuts down and your couch becomes a medical device. I'd eat a bowl of Alfredo at 7 p.m. and be functionally unconscious by 8:30. I kept making it because it tasted that good. But I also kept wondering if there was a version that gave me the texture, that glossy, clinging, creamy coating, without the crash. A version where I could eat dinner and still be a person afterward. It took me a while, but I found it. And it doesn't have any cream in it. The base of the sauce is steamed cauliflower blended with soaked cashews. That's the foundation. The cauliflower steamed until it's completely soft, provides the body. It blends into a smooth, thick base that gives the sauce volume and cling without heaviness. It also brings fiber, which means your blood sugar doesn't spike the way it does with a cream-based sauce. The cashews, soaked for a few hours until they're soft, provide the fat. When blended, they create a rich, silky emulsion that coats the tongue the same way cream does. The ratio I keep coming back to is about 2 parts, cauliflower to 1 part cashew. More cauliflower and it's too thin. More cashew and it's too heavy. That balance gives you the body without the brick. Blend them together with a splash of pasta water. The starchy liquid acts as the glue that makes the sauce cling to the noodles, and you're already 80% of the way to Alfredo. It looks like cream sauce. It moves like cream sauce. It coats a spoon the way cream sauce does. The other 20% is what makes it taste like Alfredo instead of just pureed vegetables. Traditional Alfredo gets its savory depth from Parmesan. That's really just a request for salt, fat, and fermentation. The three things that make aged cheese taste like aged cheese. White miso and nutritional yeast replicate that combination without the dairy. The miso brings the fermented depth, that aged, almost funky quality that you'd miss without it. The nutritional yeast brings the savory, slightly cheesy quality that rounds out the top of the flavor profile. A tablespoon of miso, a quarter cup of nutritional yeast, into the blender with everything else. The other piece most Alfredo recipes get wrong, traditional or not, is the garlic. Boiling raw garlic in cream produces a sharp, one-dimensional flavor that sits on top of the sauce instead of integrating into it. Sauté the garlic first. Cook it in a little olive oil or ghee until it's golden, not brown, golden, and then add it to the blender. That short step transforms the garlic from a raw bite into a roasted, mellow warmth that disappears into the sauce. You taste depth instead of garlic. And lemon. Half a lemon, juiced, blended in. It does what lemon always does. Cuts through the fat, brightens the whole thing, keeps your palate from going numb after 3 bites. Without the acid, this sauce is rich but flat. With it, it's rich and alive. Steam about 2 cups of cauliflower until it's falling apart soft. Blend it with half a cup of soaked cashews, a quarter cup of nutritional yeast, a tablespoon of white miso, the juice of half a lemon, and half a cup of pasta water. Stream in 2 tablespoons of good olive oil while the blender runs. Season with salt and a lot of freshly cracked black pepper. The pepper matters more than you'd think. It breaks up the creaminess. Each bite has a little heat, a little crunch from the grind, and it keeps the richness from becoming monotonous. Don't be shy with it. Toss it with whatever pasta shape you want. Chickpea fusilli is what I use most. The spirals catch the thick sauce, and the pasta brings protein that white flour doesn't. But any shape works. The sauce is the star. It's not identical to traditional Alfredo. I want to be honest about that. It's not trying to be. It doesn't have the dairy richness that butter and cream produce. That specific, heavy, coat your entire mouth quality. What it has instead is something I like better. You can taste the pasta through the sauce. You can taste the pepper. If you add fresh herbs on top, torn basil, a little parsley, you can actually taste them instead of tasting cream with a hint of green. And at 8:30 p.m., I'm still awake, still functional, still a person. The plate is clean and the crash never came. That's what graduated means. Same feeling, different foundation. That's EP5, the gradient. 5 tracks, 1 line running through all of them. The paste that becomes a sauce the moment you add liquid. The cream that was never the only answer. The shape that determines whether the sauce stays on the plate or makes it to your mouth. The 4 jars in your fridge that turn ingredients into dinner. And the Alfredo that gives you everything you wanted without sending you to the couch. The gradient was always there. You just needed to see it. Here's to health, happiness, and a remix that's uniquely yours. Thank you for spending time with me. The Remixology app is where the remix continues. Recipes, swaps, and a little something new every Friday. Here's to health, happiness, and a remix that's uniquely yours.